Hello, everybody. Welcome into The Cycle. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined as always by Mike Maher. If you missed our part one, please be sure to check out our Rounding the Bases. We did a deep dive on James Wood. We talked about some risers and followers early in the season, some injury updates, and we also did a draft between Maher and myself of some of our favorite breakouts early in the season, guys that we really do believe in are legitimate. We are now going to dive into our buys and sells. We've got some buy lows, some sell highs, and we've also got some waiver picks coming up as well for you. Let's start, as we always do, with the buy lows. And Maher, we will start with your favorite buy low.
So my favorite buy low is Sandy Alcantara. And, for obvious reasons. I feel like I keep saying the word obvious, so I'll probably stop saying the word obvious. If you watched the previous video, I said it about 6 times there too. But off to a slow start. When I first wrote him up as a buy low, he was just coming off an atrocious start where he got run out of the building in the second inning. This most recent start last night was a little bit better, where he lasted 6 innings and threw a quality start. But still, the ERA at the time when I wrote him up was up over 7. It's still 6.5. Expected numbers are better, but still in the mid 4s. And so I think, I've seen a lot of questions about him on Twitter, Discord, YouTube comments. A lot of people are asking should I trade Sandy Alcantara? Some people ask if they could drop him. The answer is I don't think you should unless it's a really shallow league. I know I have him in a shallow league and I'm not dropping him. But I do think that you can potentially buy low on him right now, which is why I have him as my buy low. And let me pull up right now who I wrote up in the article as people that I think you could buy low, flipping him for. So I'll just like we did last week, I'll send these names to you and you can tell me who would you rather have rest of season, Sandy Alcantara or these names. And I usually do more pitcher for hitter kind of trades. So Sandy or Nick Castellanos?
Sandy.
Paul Goldschmidt.
Sandy.
Zach Neto.
Sandy.
Michael Busch.
Michael Busch is interesting. I think I would probably still go Sandy because I do have my doubts about how legitimate Busch's breakout has been.
And then the last one, I kind of toyed with the idea of flipping a buy low for a buy low in Jake Burger.
I think I'm going to make it a clean sweep and go Sandy across the board.
Do you think those names are close enough for a Sandy trade?
I think depends on the league. The one that I've, obviously from my reaction, found the most difficult to pick was Busch. But I think the other names were within range, yeah.
So what I try to do in these scenarios with coming up with pairs is I try to think of a scenario where if you're trading Sandy away, you probably have pitching to spare, and he's your spare part, but you need a bat. So you're more willing to take someone like a Nick Castellanos or a Michael Busch because you're like, I need this bat more than this arm.
Yeah.
And so even though it's not like a straight 1-for-1, although it is if you look at the stats.
I think Castellanos is actually a good one. I'm just a little low on Castellanos, but I actually think that's a very good trade to pose to someone if you're in that position that you're trying to make a deal like that.
Do you think he's a buy low, Sandy Alcantara?
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I like him a lot. I'm really curious to hear how you're... By the way, we have all pitchers in our buy low, sell high segment. That was not intentional. We just happened to both pick 2 pitchers here. My buy low, I'm really curious to see what you think of. Aaron Nola, who I have in a lot of places, and I'm already at the point where he's an auto, not even in my starting lineup, but I can't bring myself to drop him yet. He's been awful. He's 0-5 through 5 starts with a 6.43 ERA. He does have 31 strikeouts in 28 innings. His whip is 161. There are some interesting things about Nola right now that stand out in terms of his strikeout rate is technically higher than it was last year. His walk rate is a little higher. It's not insane. What's interesting to me is, and I actually had added him to the sheet before I was reading in an article on Yahoo this morning from Dalton Del Don, who we respect a lot, where he listed Aaron Nola's 6.43 ERA is a lie, and some of the bad luck he's had. So I had actually written down these stats already, but I'll draw from his article because they're all in one place conveniently for me. 364 BABIP. It's 4th highest in the league, very much higher than his career mark of 294. His left on base percentage is 66.5%, and his home run to fly ball ratio is 24%. Those are both near the bottom in baseball and very off his career rates. And this was a stat that Dalton had that I had not pulled up, is that his Sierra this year, who I think we've talked about before, is a stat that you and I both find to be very helpful and predictive in terms of pitching. It's one of the ones I look at most, is actually lower than he had last season, despite having this really pronounced ERA. One of the things that I had noted yesterday that Dalton notes again as well is that Nola's velocity is down, but what Dalton also notes here, and not just to steal from here, like I said, a lot of these I had written down, but these are just all in one place, so I'm reading off his paragraph here. But one of the things that Dalton had written down that I hadn't is that his velocity tends to start out slow and then increase throughout the season, kind of into the back half of the year. His velocity is in the same range it was last April. So I say all that to say, I don't think Aaron Nola is going to be an SP1 the rest of the season. Like, this has been bad enough that, like, I do think you need to recalibrate expectations from wherever it was. Not that you were drafting him that high, but, like, from wherever it was that you were drafting him. However, I do think he will be better than he's been so far. I think this is an outlier. I think it's an anomaly based on, not straining runners. And, I mean, the home run to fly ball rate is really insane. Like, his most years are like the 15% range. This year it's 24%. Like, that will go down. So I think he's actually, because you can probably get him for very little because he's been so bad. I think he's a good buy low.
So you're not buying into the odd year conspiracy theory with Aaron Nola that just like every other year he stinks?
No, I am not buying into that. And I mean, because like obviously this is worse than some of the other odd years, and it is kind of funny like looking at it, like 2023, 4.46 ERA, 2021 4.63, the other years in the threes. I recognize that. I'm aware of that. I'm not buying into that. I just think this is a particularly slow start. But the thing is, like, even let's say he ends up with a line similar to what he had in 2023, which was, a bad year for him. That's still like ERA 2 runs better than it is. It's still somebody that you could have on your roster. And if you're in a need of pitching, can like start him in 2-start weeks, or if you're just like really desperate and have a strong hitting lineup, but your pitchers are terrible. Like I think even in a bad year, he will still be like drastically better than he has been.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned his Sierra. His xFIP is also lower than last year. It's 3.38. Last year is 3.44.
Wild. Well, it's just so funny, these early season samples, especially with pitchers. I mean, he has had more than one bad start, but it's funny with pitchers where like early on one bad start can make it look a lot worse. I mean, I do think it's worth noting to that point, like he's made 5 starts. 2 of them have been very clearly bad. One of those came against the Nationals in his first start of the season. The other one came against, I think his other really bad start was against the Giants. Yeah. One of them was like, okay. It wasn't good. It wasn't a quality start, but like 6 1/3, 4 runs, 6 strikeouts is like, that's not like a killer against the Mets. And then the other 2 have been like actually like halfway decent. One of them didn't come with strikeouts. It was against the Dodgers though. And the other one was like an actual pretty good start against the Cardinals, who have been it's been a tough stretch of teams he's faced, like, to be fair. So I'm not saying he's going to be like a fantasy ace, but I think you can get him for cheap, and I think he will provide more value than you have to get up to get him.
Yeah, that's fine. Are we jumping over to sell highs now?
Yeah.
So I'll go first. My sell high is Nick Pivetta, and he's just pitching ahead of his mind right now. Looks like one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I just like, maybe I'm just being like pessimistic because I'm a Red Sox fan, but I've seen this movie before. Like, I've seen him go on these runs before where he looks really, really good, and then at the end of the year, his ERA is still in the 4s. And you're going to get the good strikeout numbers. You're going to get an ERA in the 4s. And that's just what you're going to have to live with Nick Pivetta. Right now, through 5 starts, 30 innings, 30 strikeouts, 1.20 ERA, 0.77 whip. Just looks incredible. Looks the part. I was talking, a couple weeks ago to Callie, our video producer, who's he's out in San Diego. He's a big Padres fan. And he's like, man, Nick Pivetta looks great. And I was like, look, let's pump the brakes a little bit on Nick Pivetta. You're going to be excited about him for a month, and then you're going to like just curse his name for a month. This is just kind of what the Nick Pivetta experience is. expected numbers are worse, but not much worse. But you would expect them to be worse for a 1.20 ERA. But it's just like the guy he's 32 with a 4.66 career ERA, and I just don't think you're going to get ace production from this guy, even though he looks really, really good right now. And so while his value is potentially at its highest, I'm willing to sell high for what I can get for him. Do you think he's a sell high? And then I'll throw the names at you for what you think.
First of all, shouts to the guy who in our comments in our bold predictions show said that Nick Pivetta was going to lead baseball in strikeouts this year.
Yeah, that's true. There was also a Casey Mize prediction, so there was some multiple good bold predictions in there.
Yeah, I think you laid out a good case. I didn't really consider him when putting together this, this segment. He wasn't a name that I thought of and decided not to go with. But I think you make a good case, and I would agree with you.
BABIP is 205. Home run to fly ball ratio is 2.9%. That's just not sustainable. Those are not real numbers.
Yeah.
So I said I was flipping him, and like I usually do, pitcher for hitter for the most part. And I would be happy to sell high and would take someone like Taylor Ward. Do you agree with that one?
I think I'd rather have Pivetta.
Okay. So breakout Christian Campbell. Would you rather have Christian Campbell or Pivetta?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I think I might slightly lean Pivetta, but if you ask me tomorrow, I might say Campbell. I think that's a really good one.
All right. Brandon Nimmo. I assume you're going to say Pivetta for that one too.
Yeah, I'll take Pivetta.
Stephen Kwan.
I'd take Kwan.
And then Luis Arias.
I'd take Pivetta.
Okay. So I used the FantasyPros.
Maybe Arias. I don't know. That one's close too. Sorry.
Yeah. Assuming you need a hitter and
it's
batting
need
average.
Dependent, of course.
Yeah. What would I do is I use the FantasyPros fantasy baseball trade value chart, and I try to pair pitcher versus hitter where the value is very similar. And so those are how I pull with these names, which I think are. I'd rather have all of those names than Pivetta personally.
A couple of those were pretty close for me. A couple of those were really coin flip names. So I think those are good names. I'll go to my sell high. Carlos Rodon. This is twofold. One part of it is similar to when you were calling Hunter Green a sell high earlier in the season, and just having an injury concern. Rodon's injury history isn't maybe as extensive as his reputation, but it's certainly not nothing, and there have been lost seasons to injury, and that's just kind of always in the back of my mind, especially as a guy gets older. He's 32 now. It just, that's always in the back of my mind. But also, I think you might be able to sell high with people maybe overreacting to the last two starts, which were both excellent. 7 innings, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts, and then 6 innings, no earned runs, 9 strikeouts. Those are his last 2 outings. They came, at Cleveland, at Tampa Bay, so I'm not crazy impressed by that. And prior to the last 2 starts, his ERA was, 5.48 this season, and he was coming off very, very 3 straight poor. 3 of his first 4 outings this year were very, very bad, or at least bad to some degree of between bad and very bad against Arizona, Detroit, and San Francisco. So I think, and especially in that home ballpark with the Yankees, I know he's a lefty, which helps, but in that home ballpark, some degree of injury history, inconsistency. I think if he can sell coming off these back-to-back very strong starts, I would be very happy to do that with Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, I'd be fine with selling high on him. When you first put the name in the sheet, I was like, can you even sell high on him? Hasn't he gotten up to a slow start? And then I saw the last 2 starts were both really good. And so that's why, because I saw people cursing his name on social media a month ago.
Yeah, it's coming off these 2 great starts. And just looking at the strikeouts, if somebody really is in a league that really values strikeouts or just really needs them, 37 and 29 innings is not anything to stick your nose up at. But I think coming off these 2 starts now would be a good time to try and sell him if you can.
Yeah, I'm on board with selling high on Rodon for those reasons. I don't necessarily think he's going to be this consistently good. I think you're probably going to, if he stays healthy, you're probably going to get close to 200 strikeouts. But like you said, there are injury concerns there as well, and they've cropped up as recently as last year.
Do you want to quickly hit on this bonus that you wrote down?
Yeah, the bonus I wrote down was Crow-Armstrong that I have as a sell high just because he's really, really hot right now, and I'm not technically buying into it. Like, it's fun. I think he's a really good prospect, but I don't think he's as good as what's kind of like happening right now. I mentioned in the previous video, like a couple of his home runs, I watched them, and it's like he like digs the ball out low, and it just looked kind of like a pop-up the other way, and it just happened to like, sneak over the fence. Exit velocity is not really there. He's striking out like, it's fine. It's like 23% of the time. BABIP is 352. I think, he's someone who, has some speed, so his BABIP is probably going to be pretty high. But I think in general, like the batted ball data is pretty soft. And so while I think he's going to be good, especially as someone like he's already stolen 10 bases, like that's really valuable in fantasy. You can really sell high on that, especially for a guy that just hit, he's already got 5 home runs. I just don't think the power is as legitimate as it appears right now. And so I think while he's really hot on this really hot run, I think you can sell at his peak value. Even though I think, I think he's fine. I think he's going to be good. I just don't think he's going to be this good. And so I think his perceived value is higher right now, which is what a sell high is.
If you are struggling with lineup decisions, our lineup assistant recommends optimal lineup suggestions to maximize your team's performance each day or week. Just sync your league for tailored guidance based on your roster and league settings. Download the Fantasy Baseball My Playbook app or visit fantasypros.com/MLB MyPlaybook to set your winning lineup today. Let's go into our waivers central. I'll go first in this one. My favorite hitter is Austin Hayes. He is 38% rostered on Yahoo, 19% rostered on ESPN, 55% rostered on CBS. He does not have enough at-bats to qualify to kind of have like full standing in MLB StatCast right now. I don't know if you looked at his page recently though. Like he's not listed with the percentiles, but it's a lot of red rows on that page. He has been very, very hot so far to start this year with Cincinnati. He's batting .361. His OPS is over 1,000. In just 36 at-bats, he has 3 home runs and a stolen base. And his expected numbers are great. His xWOBA is 443. His expected batting average is still 329. Expected slugging, 674. So he's been hitting the ball really well super early, right? Like his barrel rate's 18.5%. That's 3 times what it was last year. That, is maybe not likely to sustain itself. He does have the second highest walk rate of his career, which I thought was noticeable. The strikeout rate is largely in line with other numbers. The hard hit rate is 51.9%. He's never been above 41% in the past. He's looked really good, and he plays in Cincinnati, and like that's a great hitter's park. And I wonder if this is a team that has a lot of youth, so I wonder if they really value a veteran like him. He's only 29, but like he's a veteran compared to a lot of the Reds hitters, and I think can just provide a lot of value if he ends up getting enough at bats to matter. So the fact that he's very readily available and is hitting the ball this well, I don't think he's going to be a league winner for you, but I think he's worth picking up.
Yeah, he's someone I picked up in some deeper leagues last week, and in another deeper league, I kind of wish I had picked him up because I could really use the offensive production there, and I remember looking at his name and prioritizing someone else that I ended up getting. But, I think I don't know how long it's going to last. I know there was some talk about, last year he wasn't really healthy and he was dealing with I want to say it was like a kidney infection last year.
That's been a consistent thing for him. Not kidneys, but he has been banged up a lot in his career, I will point out. Yeah,
and was not at 100% last year, and now is 100% in a good ballpark. I know everyone thought that was going to happen last year with the Phillies, but it seemed like he wasn't 100%. I don't know if it's going to be a rest of season thing, but it doesn't have to be. Just ride him while he's hot.
I like that he started almost every game since coming off the IL too. Like he started his first 8 coming off, and I'm also just realizing I'm looking at your roster because I haven't pulled up in Fantrax just to look at his stat page, and I'm noticing that in our Dynasty League that you and I are in on Fantrax, you have Austin Hayes, who I mentioned. You have Carlos Rodon, who I talked about as a sell high. A lot of these I'm drawing from your roster here in today's episode. But I like Austin Hayes again. Ride him while he's hot would be kind of my advice there, depending on the league you're in. Who are your favorite hitters?
Yeah, that's my scrappy roster, by the way. I'm off to a strong start despite taking over a dud of a team.
You took over an absolute nothing burger.
Yeah, we're looking good right now. We'll see how long I can keep that boat floating. So I included 2 names, not to cheat, but I also despite the roster numbers, they looked a little low to me. So he might be rostered in your league already. So I included a second name, but the first name is Chandler Simpson. If he's available, pick him up in your league. It's free speed. He's batting at the top of that lineup. Someone that we've talked about on the show a few times. Someone that you talked about before the season as someone you liked just because of the speed potential. Basically the fastest guy in the world. He's available. He's rostered in 33% of Yahoo leagues, 21% of ESPN leagues, and 58% of CBS leagues, which always has kind of like the most roster percentage.
This opinion of mine quickly might change. Right now, I think those numbers should be over 90%. Like the speed is so obvious that maybe he will prove me wrong and you can drop him later on. But right now, that should be close to 100 in my opinion.
Yeah, and what's really exciting is that he has batted leadoff twice, and then when they faced a lefty, he was in the lineup once already. He batted ninth, but he was in the lineup. And so it wasn't in the lineup yesterday. But if he can at least play like some days against lefties, or at least like come in, in some of those days, I think you can see some real speed numbers there. You're not going to get any power out of him, but you should get a decent batting average and a lot of steals. So I need both of those things in a lot of leagues, and so I added him wherever I could. If he was kind of a popular waiver name heading into last waiver period, but it was kind of like coming into the weekend, so you might not have, like, your league, depending on how sharp it is, might not have picked him up. I spent a ton of fab for him in TGFBI. I spent over 200 to get him. But yeah, that's basically the selling point for him. Average speed, really, really fast. Not going to provide any power, but is going to provide a lot of speed. He's already stolen 2 bases in 4 games. And the other name I included, Agustin Ramirez, who is a catcher. 22% Yahoo, 5% ESPN, 32% CBS. If you need a catcher, especially in 2 catcher leagues, is someone you can definitely pick up. Really interesting profile of just like someone who hits the ball really hard to the point where he could potentially stay in the lineup even if he's not catching for the Marlins. It's not like they have a very deep lineup that would keep him out of the lineup. But just an intriguing kind of profile. Not someone who's going to like win your league, like you said. But especially like there's really only like a handful of like catchers who you're definitely going to start, in your weekly leagues that you have to keep. And sometimes when the hot catcher comes around, you got to ride him. And so he's on the roster now. He's playing now, and I think he could hit his way onto sticking around. And I think his batted ball profile is just it's just exciting as someone who in the minors, if you look at 2024 across no, there's no T in across 2024 across 126 games, 25 home runs, 22 steals. So he even steals bases as a catcher. So he's got a little bit of speed too. So like, and he did that while batting 267 across. I keep saying with a T at the end. He was in a trade with was he in the Jazz Chisholm trade, I want to say, with the Marlins and the Yankees,
yes.
Where he came,
right? Yeah, he was. I think.
Yeah, because I see he was on the Yankees, now he's on the Marlins. According to this page, he was in that trade. I just think he's an exciting profile of someone as a catcher. You kind of like a young JT Realmuto type who can provide like a little bit of power and a little bit of speed out of a position where you don't normally get those. And in 2 games for the Marlins, he doesn't have a home run, but he already has a steal.
I picked him up like 3 days ago in a 2-catcher league and was very happy with that decision. So I am in strong agreement here. I didn't include somebody like Chandler Simpson because I felt like I talked about him enough, but I think he's a good inclusion here because those numbers are too low. And I think Ramirez is a great inclusion. Let's go to the pitchers. We'll go quickly on these. I didn't really have any that I super liked. I went with Griffin Canning. He's a 2-start pitcher this upcoming week. I had written down, I'm now forgetting who those starts are against. They are, if it'll load for me, the Nationals and the Cardinals. So like maybe not the greatest, to go up against, but he's been like pretty okay this season so far. 3.12 ERA, 138 whips, a bit high, 26 strikeouts in 26 innings. Again, I don't know if you can like make a case for your guy like stronger than I can, but Canning's very available and a 2-star pitcher. I thought it was a pretty. We can go quick. We don't need to spend time on it. Like it's really, I'm picking him up for 2 starts. I don't think there's a lot of value with him or any of the pitchers available that I saw.
I mean, you could pretty much copy paste what you said for Griffin Canning for my pick, which is Andrew Heaney. Someone who's really hot right now, someone who I don't expect to be hot for a really long time. Similar to Nick Pivetta, I've seen this show before, where he has really good strikeout numbers. He's got 31 strikeouts and 31 in the third innings, 1.72 ERA, and he's a guy with a 4.37 career ERA. He's also dealt with a ton of injury issues in the past. And he's also a 2-star pitcher this week. So he's someone that I would pick up, that I would stream. I don't think he has, I wrote it down lower in the sheet. I don't think he has the best matchups either. But his are against the Cubs and the Padres. So 2 not great matchups if you're looking to stream 2-star pitchers. But just off to a really strong start, and someone that, if you're trying to like piece together and stream your rotation, it's hard to argue with a guy that has a 1.72 ERA. At some point, he's going to come back down to earth. Hopefully, you can get a week or 2 out of him before that happens.
Run us quickly through your deep league targets.
So some deep league targets: Luke Keeschel, 5 steals in 5 games. Eligible in the middle infield, I think second base. He's also eligible at first base, I want to say, in some leagues. I feel like I picked him up somewhere, and he may have been eligible at first base, possibly on CBS. Noelle Marte is off to a strong start. Cade Smith, it sounds like Emmanuel Clase was just maybe a little like fatigued and banged up, and that's why Cade Smith is getting save chances. But Emmanuel Clase not off to a great start. Cade Smith has gotten some saves for the Guardians. Steven Matz is someone who's back from injury, and he's a potential 2-star pitcher this week. Tyler Anderson is still available as a streamer for you. JT Ginn, someone I think I mentioned last week as well. Also, I mentioned Tyler Anderson last week. JT Ginn is available. I picked him up in TGFBI last week. He should be a 2-star pitcher this week with one of those starts at the Marlins. Cedar Rafaela is an interesting name who I think you can pick up in the short term. He's someone I was interested in coming into the season because he flashed last year with some power, some speed, but his big issue is that he swung at everything. He didn't have no plate discipline. He just didn't walk. And he walked almost as many times in spring training as he did all of last season. And so that was really exciting. And then the season started, and he started swinging at everything again, and the numbers went down. But after a slow start, he's kind of turned things around. He's being more patient, and we're starting to see a little bit of power. He's already got, I think, 6 steals. And so I think there's potential there for a short-term pickup for a guy who's eligible kind of all over the place. The only thing with him is that, and not the only thing, but a main thing with him is that you keep hearing all the rumblings about the Red Sox calling up some of these prospects, like Roman Anthony. And at that point, Rafaela might be the odd man out. One of the main reasons he's probably still in the lineup is because he bats righty, and the Red Sox have way too many lefties, and their prospects are also lefties. Caleb Durbin is an interesting name. Connor Norby is, I'm sure a guy you're very familiar with. I picked him up in a couple leagues as someone who I'm hoping to get some power speed out of. He should play every day in that lineup. There's no one really stopping him. Gavin Sheets is off to a good start. And then Lucas Giolito is making his triumphant return. Close your eyes and see what happens if you want to, I grabbed him. I'm not starting him right away, but I grabbed him in one league and just stashed him just in case. I don't have a ton of confidence, but, he's a former top-end pitcher. If he comes back from injury and looks okay, maybe you have someone you can keep on your roster for a while.
I did say quickly, right? I said that out loud?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. We'll wrap up there. Thanks, everybody, for checking out this part of the cycle this week. Be sure to check out part 1 if you missed it, and keep an eye out for part 3, where we'll talk about some streaming pitchers and do our 2-star pitcher competition and see what we're excited about this weekend. For Maher, I am Ryan Wormeli. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next video.